So many people dream about making multi-millions in the restaurant business. Fact is, most restaurants fail. Now, John Felico knows all about what it takes to create a successful restaurant business and also what not to do in order to create a successful restaurant business as well. Now, he's the author of Drafting a Dream, and he is a serial entrepreneur, acclaimed advisor, expert restaurant owner with over 40 years of experience in the culinary industry. He launched his first business selling sausages behind Kennedy Airport when he was only 17. 10 years later, he opened a Dominics of New York food truck outside a Lowe's store in Virginia. And over the next 2 decades, he grew the business to 175 locations and developed licensing deals to place its products in supermarkets and sports venues around the country. Now, you'll all agree he is absolutely fabulous. So I'm so delighted to have you here, John. So please tell us, what's the secret to your success and how did a restaurant business contribute towards it?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
What's the secret to my success? I don't know if there's necessarily a secret. I guess the easier part would be, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father was an entrepreneur, my uncles, my grandfather, all of my cousins. In fact, I don't believe any of my cousins actually even work for anybody. We've all just grown up in that environment. And it was just something that we were born into. It became just part of our culture and who we were. Because our family is an entrepreneurial family, started out in the food truck business. That was where I got my start in the restaurant industry. It was my path to go that way. I guess if we were in a different type of business as a family, that's the direction I would have gone into. But we started out when I was in high school. My fathers and uncles had sausage trailers, and what a sausage trailer is, you mentioned that earlier. It's basically what you would see at a state fair. In New York, they would do them at Italian festivals, and the biggest one that everybody knows is Our Lady of San Gennaro. That's on Mulberry Street in New York. But we would have our trailers and we would sell Italian sausage. And in the wintertime, my father would take that same trailer and start selling sausages on the streets of New York. When I was in high school, I built a trailer and I did the exact same thing. And that's how I got my start in the industry.
That's so interesting. So most people dream of having a successful restaurant business and they just don't know how to do it. And in fact, my partner, before he met me, had a restaurant business and failed miserably. And I think he, came out of it in huge debt as well. And I think every person who dreams of having a restaurant or has a restaurant kind of goes about it the wrong way. And a lot of the times, the biggest problem is they waste all the money on creating the product, like creating a really beautiful restaurant and then having a really nice look and maybe refined meals, but they don't think about marketing. Now, what's your take on that? What's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make when trying to create a successful restaurant business?
People, it's sad because you said it at the beginning. More than half of new restaurants fail. And I've watched so many new entrepreneurs over my career because Dominics of New York was the name of my first restaurant concept, and we franchised it. And within the franchise, I had to interview so many people, and they only get to see the sexy side of the business. They only see, they dream about what it would be like to have people coming to their place to eat the food that they make, that they had passion for. But they don't see the hard side of the business. They don't see the fact that it's an 80-hour week would be a light week. That's just the nature of the beast. When you want to be in a restaurant, when your customers want to be at your restaurant, it's during the holidays, it's on the weekends, it's at dinner, it's at lunch, the time you want to be home with your family, but you can't because you have to be in your restaurant. And there has to be a passion for it that goes above and beyond just wanting to cook food for people. If you do, especially at the beginning, if you divide the amount of hours you work with the amount of money you're making well less than minimum wage, especially at the beginning. So many people go into it without seeing that other side of the business. They need a plan. They need a plan, not just for marketing, not just for the type of food, but they need to visualize in their head how the customers are going to flow through their business, what they're going to do when problems happen, and they will happen. A great example of that, and I just wrote a book specifically about this, is my last creation was called Auggies Draft Room. I opened it up in St. Augustine, Florida. I opened it up with my daughter, my son-in-law, and my wife. And now I'm in this industry my entire life. You will not find a better operator than me. I could say that with a lot of confidence. The first 3 months that we were open, we only grossed about $5,000 a week. I thought, I am the person that you would want to open up this restaurant for you if you were going to hire somebody. The truth is, most restaurants, new concepts that open, if they are successful from day one, even with an experienced owner, it's because they were lucky. And I'm not taking away from the operator that might have opened it. There's so many things you just can't anticipate. It's impossible to anticipate all of them. But the good restaurant operators learn how to make the adjustments. They learn how to see how to change the flow of their business. They learn how to market their business. They learn what's working and what's not working. And after that first 3 months, where we were grossing about $5,000 a week, fast forward to 2 years later, and we were grossing $2 million a year. And that's because of all the adjustments that have to be made. And that's actually the goal. You want to be able to slowly make those adjustments. Sometimes you have some wholesale adjustments, but you have to make those adjustments to get to where you want to be. And that was the impetus for writing my book.
Thank you. What preparation should entrepreneurs think of before they even launch their restaurant?
Oh my God, that's not. We don't have enough time in the show. You'd have to read my book and probably others. There's so much that has to go. And the first thing they absolutely must do is they have to figure out. The first chapter of my book is called Know Thyself, and it's called Know Thyself because I've worked with so many, literally thousands of operators over my career. And I've kind of put all those operators in kind of different buckets, only 4. And each one of them describes the type of entrepreneur I believe they were. And that made it easier for me to learn how to work with each one of them. Because if I understood who they were and how they were going to go about their business, it made it easier for me to work with them. And if they don't do a true self-evaluation, if they're even qualified to be in not just the restaurant industry, but to be an entrepreneur in general, they shouldn't do it. They really shouldn't. I say that right in the first chapter. Here are the categories. If you can't do this, you shouldn't. If this is your type of personality, you're not made to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're not made, most people are not. Let's face it. That's why so many restaurants go out of business. Most people are not qualified to be in business for themselves.
Thank you. What are the basics that entrepreneurs need to think of when starting a restaurant?
When I start a restaurant, I first of all, I'm a little fortunate than most. I won't say that I'm going to I have a specific restaurant in mind and I want to open it somewhere. I kind of go at it differently. I'll look at a location and then I try to think about what concept would fit in that location. Because every concept will not fit in every single location. And to me, everybody kind of starts with the menu. The menu is easy. That part is by far the easiest part because honestly, you should just copy people that have already done it better than you or can do it better than you. And that's what I've always done. I've created great menus on my own over the years, got very creative. People copy those. And as time went on, I just start copying other people. But the first thing is to find a location that has foot traffic. By far, that is the biggest. I know everybody said it, location, location, location. That's been said for many years. And it is absolutely true. If you are going in a B location or a C location, when you go in the restaurant industry, you want to stack all the odds in your favor because the odds are you're not going to make it. So the more odds the more things you can give you to stack the odds in your favor, the better it is for you. And your location is the first thing you have to look at. In my book, I actually talk about location in 4 different sections in the book because that's how important it is. That is number 1.
Thank you. I'm wondering about the location, actually. The reason I'm asking is because, for example, my partner opened a restaurant in a street that had foot traffic, but it was full of Pakistani and Indian restaurants. So he came up with this concept to do like a tapas, a Spanish tapas restaurant. And because he kind of did that in a partnership with someone else, he had to do it halal. Okay, so it was a halal Spanish tapas restaurant.
Very niche.
Harry's Spanish tapas. And so I wonder, is it a good idea to have your restaurant on a street that already has a gazillion restaurants? Or if not, where, like, how do you come up with the concept of, okay, where should I have the restaurant? And do you take energy into consideration, like, for example, the energy of the place? Like, is there like a particular flow, not just the flow of people, but also is there like a particular vibe that you look for when you actually consider getting a restaurant location?
The vibe is not so much for the location, but you do want to create a vibe. You want to make a place that has a happening. I don't believe, I said earlier that the menu is almost secondary, and it really is. To me, the first thing that I've always created in my restaurants is an experience. You want to create, I sell experiences, I don't sell food. When you look at it from that point of view, all of a sudden the vibe and the color on the walls and the way that the traffic flows, all of that becomes different. You look at it differently. You have to picture yourself, almost envision yourself as a customer when you're walking in there, how you want that vibe to be, what you're trying to accomplish. And that's how I always go about it. The food is secondary. I can make great food. I can copy any menu that's out there. And honestly, if you're not talented enough to copy menus, there's plenty of resources online. And you could go to Cisco. They'll create your menu for you. There's lots of resources to create your menu. People get very caught up on just the menu. And again, I think that's secondary. Get caught up on the experience. Always get caught up in the experience. Think about what the customers are going through when they're going through your place.
Thank you. Now, that's a very good point. Like, and the reason I really like what you said is because typically the way people create a restaurant is they think of, my grandmother has this series of recipes, or, my family cooks really well, or my mother cooks really well. Oh, let's start a restaurant. So they think of it from, okay, I have already like the recipe book, therefore I'm kind of qualified to do a restaurant. But it takes so much more than that, doesn't it? It takes so much more than just coming up with the actual recipe book and having a great meal. It takes the experience, like you talked about. So I really love that you said that. What would you say are the top things that entrepreneurs miss out on when or forget to do when they are creating a restaurant?
I'd have to pull out my book, but I made an entire list of don't forget. It's called at the back of the book. They're all things that you have to look at that you don't forget about. It could be from getting the proper permits. It could be from where to put trash cans. There are a list of things that we all forget. And unless you actually have that list that you can pull up, you'll forget it. And also, you mentioned earlier before that, they don't think so much about marketing. I'm not a huge fan of marketing until you get your operations right. I don't recommend to any of my clients to ever do any marketing until you have nailed down your operations. That that the food takes so many minutes, it takes so many minutes to get to a table, so many minutes to cook. So until your operations are just slam dunk, that's when you start doing marketing.
Wow, that is so fascinating. Because
so many people, just going back on, so many people will do so much marketing, and then the customer will come and have a terrible experience. And if they have a terrible experience and the rules that they're going to tell somebody, and so, especially in our days of social media, you give somebody a terrible experience, they're going to shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder what elements are there in terms of creating a fabulous experience?
There are a lot. Everything from the smell of your place when you walk in there. I can't tell you the amount of times I've worked with a customer or even just went to a restaurant and you have that kind of sour smell in the air. And that sour smell in the air, by the way, is literally because they didn't clean the mop bucket in the last 2 days. And they are spreading that same bacteria, basically a thin layer of it everywhere. And that's the smell that you get in the air. Unfortunately, owners and managers, when they're living in the box, they're working in the restaurant, they stop smelling it. They stop seeing things that are wrong. If there's a hole in the wall, they stop seeing it after a while, just like we would do at home. Sometimes you ignore it, and all of a sudden you just say, I'll do it tomorrow, and then you forget, and then it just becomes normal. You have to always be looking at your restaurant through the eyes of your customer. And it's the smell, it's the sounds that are in there. It's the amount of time that it takes somebody to be recognized. And what I mean by that is when a customer comes in, they want to, and they sit down, you only have a few minutes to actually talk to them. And I list it down. You should be acknowledging a customer when they sat down within 5 minutes of them sitting. You should have their order in hand within 7 or 8 minutes of them sitting down. I break down exactly how much time, and I put a clock. If I'm working with a customer, I will put a clock on it, how long it takes them to do each one of those functions, because customers have kind of a weird clock in their head that if things are taking too long, the experience goes down. And that's the part that a lot of operators miss.
Thank you.
There are other things too. Serving your food all at the same time. How much do you hate when you're sitting there in front of your food and somebody else is still waiting for theirs? It boggles my mind that even trained kitchen staffers will still send food out at different times. Seasoned people that know what they're doing, they'll still send food out at different times. It blows me away. That ruins experiences for customers.
Thank you. Now, to get that right, you need some super seriously trained people.
Oh, absolutely.
So I wonder, how do you manage to attract, retain, and motivate and continuously train those people to make sure they deliver that experience? Because, for example, for me, it's so natural to smile every time I'm doing something. But there are millions of people who struggle with that. Okay. And even let's say if you have a front of house or, a server, and they bring the food and they're not smiling, or they don't care so much. I find that most people don't care so much. So
nope, you're right.
How do you find those people that actually deeply care about your business, deeply care about themselves and their work and how they show up in the world, that they are able and willing to deliver an excellent experience for your restaurant?
You're not going to like this answer, but the answer is you're not. You might find somebody who has the right attributes that you're looking for, but the reality is that person's going to leave you. The restaurant industry, every one of your employees will leave you. And the more you like them, the more trust you have in them, they will eventually leave you, and they're generally going to leave you at the most inopportune time. I know that makes it hard. That's a horrible thing to say, but it's the truth. This is the restaurant industry. It's the nature of the beast. I could give you a lot of things to help retain your employees. I could tell you a lot of things that help make your employees better, and I'll go through that in my book. But the reality is they're all going to leave you. That being said, there are things that you can do to help mitigate that. If you create the processes, the systems, and the checklists that run your business, as opposed to having your employees run your business, if your business is being run by all of your systems and process, your employees become secondary. And believe it or not, when they don't have to think as much, they become better. It becomes easier for them. They know exactly what they have to do. There's a checklist for everything that they have to do. And if you have that all in place, and your checklists and your systems and your processes are running your business, you actually have a finely tuned machine that runs great, and you retain your employees better.
Wow, I love that. So you're trying to say that actually, before you even start the restaurant, you should consider creating these standard operating procedures and systems so that when you hire people, they actually already have a way to operate. So they're not like wandering around and they're not making as many mistakes.
I'm not saying you should consider doing it. I'm saying if you don't do it, you're setting yourself up to fail. You have to do that. The systems have to run your place, not your people. And when you sit there and you're going to open up a restaurant, if you think you're just going to be able to hire a chef and they're just going to take care of your kitchen, it's only a matter of time before that person leaves you. And how many times have you gone into a restaurant and the meal was phenomenal? 2-3 times you went there and then it wasn't good, and you find out that the chef left. That nobody in your business should ever have you under their thumb. Ever. It's your business. You should have everybody else should be listening to you and running on your sheet of music, not the other way around.
Wow, that is so fascinating. So, of course, most people haven't thought of that. So if they had, a lot more restaurants would be successful. Other thing,
you're right.
How do you attract clients, once you have systemized your operations and you have given all of your team a list of standard operating procedures?
Before I actually go there, I'm going to tell you something for all of your operators out there that are having that for anybody that has a restaurant right now and they're kind of failing, because you were asking how do you attract more. Years and years ago, we had probably 100 locations with Dominics of New York, and we conducted a huge survey across multiple states, and it was a couple of thousand people that we actually surveyed at our location. And the one question that we asked, which I kind of thought was a throwaway question, but it kind of changed the way I look at repairing a business, is a full 10% of the people that came to our locations, it was their first time visiting. So if you think about that, if you're getting 50 people a day, 5 of them are brand new. Those are 5 people that didn't know how bad your restaurant was the day before. Those are 5 people that didn't know that you were having, that the food was an issue. These were 5 people that didn't know you were miserable and all of the things that were bad with the day before. Those are 5 new people that you can turn into, you can wow them and build them a customer for life. If you take on that attitude, you say, tomorrow I'm going to change my stars, and tomorrow I'm going to treat every customer as if they're the greatest person in the world, it'll only take you a couple of months to rebuild your business. People find you. They do eventually find you. Of course, you want to do some marketing, and I could go into all different types of great marketing that you could do to get customers in there. But just know that you always have new people coming in. You could change your business tomorrow if you just look in the mirror today and say, I'm going to change my business.
Thank you. So what's a good way to attract more clients to the restaurant?
First and foremost, you have to get all of your systems and processes in place, like you said. You have to build an experience that you are proud of. Marketing, unfortunately, marketing today is, I'm a lot older than you. Marketing was easier years ago. I could take a full page ad out in the newspaper or advertise on TV or even on the radio, or even do Valpak coupons where, the coupons that come back. All of that would be a monumental waste of money today. The truth is, people aren't reading newspapers anymore. People fast forward through commercials or just stream. There's just no one way to do that. The truth is, you have to do it mostly through social media. And you have to get to the mindset. If this is easy for me, my daughters say that I'm extra, and it's a millennial way of saying that I do things over the top, and I do. Create an environment where people have to sit down and take a picture of something and post it online. Make it that, almost force them to do it. For example, in Auggies Draft Room, what we did is I had a whole bunch of signed sports memorabilia, and we're a sports bar, Auggies Draft Room, my newest creation. I have a bunch of signed memorabilia, and I hung it up in Auggies because it was there, because I owned it. The customers loved it so much, I went out and bought a whole bunch of it. I can't tell you how many customers will take a picture with them and themselves, a selfie, and post it online because of that. Other things we do to be extra for Christmas. It's in St. Augustine, they have a huge Christmas celebration for the month of December. I just bought a $75 snow machine. I put it up on my roof, and for 7 minutes every night, it snows in Florida. You would be amazed how 200 people show up every single night just to see the snow. And many of them will come to us and eat while they're there. There are things that you could do that are just extra. Oh, and by the way, if it's snowing in Florida, everybody has their camera out and everybody is posting it on their social media. It's things like that you could do to help you bring customers in.
Thank you. I do actually love your idea of creating Instagrammable moments in your restaurant or outside of your restaurant. And I have found that, for example, I'm very much attracted to restaurants or to cafes that have flowers outside. So I've seen some restaurants that create like a flower bed, just around their door, for example. And there was a particularly magical place in Dubai where I went, and they had these like pink lounge kind of type chairs. And they had like, I forget what those birds are called. There were some tall birds. I can't remember their names now, but they were so cute. And you kind of like just had to take a picture with it because it was so cute. And then they had these feathers, like these pink feathers all over. And then again, you had to take a picture with it. And then there were some swings, some pink swings with flowers around it. And again, you had to take a picture with it. So there were, there are some restaurants that totally love
And everything you said that added to the experience before you walked in there. They made it inviting to walk in, that it almost forced you to want to walk into a place like that. And that's all part of creating the experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I actually think it's important to create like a branding path where like everything is kind of like aligned. So for example, they had the pink kind of theme.
Mm-hmm.
Then inside like they had like cakes and a lot of them were pink. So it's really great to have like an alignment in terms of the general experience that you're offering. And I like what you said in terms of your idea of creating that,
Mm-hmm.
because it will appeal to a certain target population. So I love that. What other strategies are there for entrepreneurs to create successful restaurant?
Well, the first thing is, and this is probably just not for a restaurant, and I'm sure you preach this a million times yourself, is you need to draw a business plan up. You must draw up a business plan. It's not so much so that you have to think through. It forces you to think through everything before time. It's not so much a document that you have to use forever and ever, but if you're using a template, it forces you to think through everything. And if you're thinking through everything, then you have a better chance of surviving, because you won't have you'll be addressing the challenges before time. And that's a big part of it. You have to draw up a business plan. You have to think it through. You have to feel comfortable with what you're getting into.
Thank you. For those that already have a restaurant that is not so successful, what can they do?
The first thing they can do is know that you're getting new customers every day, like we talked about before. You can change your stars tomorrow. You really can. You start making all these new customers that are coming in. You can make them fans for life. The second part is you have to start going through each part of your business. Did you put a clock on it? Do your people make your meals exactly the same way? The truth is, what you want to build a world of comfort when people are in there. And nothing is more comfortable than familiarity. If the meal is going to be exactly the same every time, people are more comfortable with it. You don't want to, even though if it's good every time, you want it to be the same. You want meals to come out quickly. You want your staff to be working in the kitchen. There's a line. It's a line cook. You have a line, and everybody needs to know their place and what they're doing so that the food can get out there in the right amount of time. You need to have systems in place that when things go wrong, that you have the systems in place on how to address them. If a meal goes out and it's bad, you don't sit there and argue with the customer, this is great. You don't argue. You tell them, I'm very sorry. Here's your money back, and here's a new meal. For that few dollars that it cost you to make that new meal, you just made a customer for life. And they're going to post online, I didn't like my meal, and they just gave me a new one. Those are the things that you want to do. It's all about customer service at that point and making sure everything's going out right.
Thank you. What about for entrepreneurs that own a restaurant that is relatively basic because they cannot afford to make any sort of upgrades, and they cannot afford to make any sort of upgrades in terms of their staff as well, because a lot of them are part of their family and they cannot get rid of their family.
Yes, you can, by the way, but it's never a good thing.
And they cannot make upgrades in terms of the environment because they don't have the budget for it. What can they do?
They can, though. They can. There's so much they can do that costs them no money. Within Drafting a Dream, I have 16 rules that I created. Oh God, it has to be 40 years ago that was started to create it. I created specifically for Dominics of New York. And at the time it was just 10 rules. And again, it was very specific to that business. And I wanted to create these rules as a quick reference that people can look at and know how to fix things in their business. Over the years, as my knowledge and my sphere of knowledge grew, it's really grown into quite a document that can address all the things that you're talking about. If you're having issues with food costs, it tells you how to fix it. And a great example is about a year ago, my daughter and her husband, Corey, they took over Auggies Draft Room, which was always the plan from the beginning. And about 2 or 3 months into it, their food cost was at 36%. And my daughter literally took out my book and she went into the section that was controlling your controllable costs. Unfortunately, food cost is not something where you could look at it and say your Cisco is charging you too much money and that's why my food costs went up, or it's just inflation. Or the truth is, it's a lot of reasons why your food costs went up. It's death by 1,000 cuts, and you have to actually address every single one of them all at the same time if you want to fix your food costs. And that's what she did. They literally went down the list and addressed every cause of food cost problems, and they fixed them or they addressed them. And within 2 months, their food cost was back down to 28% where it needs to be. And when you consider that their food cost was up about 8% where it should be, and they're grossing $160,000 a month, that's like $13,000 that's out of their pocket that much, all because they weren't paying attention to their food costs, or things just kind of went a little awry. There are lots of things you could do to fix your business. And I go through that within my book.
Thank you. Where can people find your book? And
Amazon.
Yeah. Amazon. Okay.
Yep.
And your coaching service, is it at johnfelico.com?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Great. So
sorry, I'm in the South. We say ma'am.
Okay. So what's the worst thing you've seen entrepreneurs do when trying to grow a successful restaurant?
That's a two-part answer. The worst thing that could happen to somebody, and then the worst thing they could do. Let's go with the worst that could happen to somebody. If your spouse does not understand the business that you're getting into, does not understand the sacrifices that you're going to have to make your business a success, you're going to fail. I'm telling you now, if your spouse doesn't completely buy into it and know what they're getting into, the truth is, if you're going to own a restaurant or own any business, your first passion above your wife, your children, your life, not that you don't love your children more than your business, but this is how you're going to make money for not just now, but for years to come. And that has to become your first priority. And if your wife and your family and your support structure does not understand that, you're going to fail. The second way that you're going to fail is if you don't work your business. If you think that you're just going to hire a bunch of people to take care of your business and you're not going to get into it and learn every aspect of it, that you could do every aspect better than the people that are in your place, there's a good chance you're going to fail. And I say the reason I only said there's a good chance because we all look at some people that may have made that work, and that's only because they were lucky. I'm telling you now, it's because they were lucky. You can't hire people and make them make you money. It just doesn't work that way.
Wow. You clearly know your stuff. I'm sure all of our listeners and watchers would love to hear more about you. So go to johnfelico.com or Amazon to grab Drafting a Dream, the book, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you very much. This was a delight.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.